Introduction to Engineering, and this is Summary Statistics. Let's talk a little bit about mean, mode, and median. So we're starting a unit about statistics, and in this we're looking at data and ways of analyzing that data to discover things about the quality of a process or a set of measurements and that sort of thing. When we're talking about statistics, one of the main things we need to understand is central tendency. And there's three ways of measuring this. So if you take a set of data, there are some values that are going to be, let's call it the middle. That's what central tendency is talking about. So for central tendency, we talk about mean, mode, and median. The other idea we need to talk about is variation, and this is how the data spreads from the center. And we have three ways of describing that: range, standard deviation, and interquartile range. We will spend most of our time with range and standard deviation. And then the last factor is distribution, and this is looking at the frequency of certain values. And to do this, we use frequency tables, histograms, normal distributions. We'll also use something called a dot plot. This is the formula for mean, and mean is when you add all of the values together and divide them by the number of values in that data set. So we represent mean in this case with the Greek letter mu, and it's equal to the sum of all of the values divided by the number of values in the sample. So it looks complicated with all the Greek, but it's really not. You add them all up, divide by how many you have. That's what you're doing. So, and this is just explaining what each thing means. Mu means mean value, the average. Xi is the individual data value, and that just means x to any number of values. The Greek letter epsilon here means add them up, the sum of all the data values, and the capital letter N is the number of data values in the data set. For example, if you take these numbers, this set of 11 numbers, and you add them all together, you get 243. And then the number of values that you have in this set, we have 11. So if you follow the formula through, the mean is equal to 243 divided by 11, and you get to 22.09 as your average or your mean value. And Project Lead the Way, they expect you to not round until you get your final number. This is always good advice. And so it's basically saying any intermediate values, like as you're adding these together or dividing or performing math, keep the values in your calculator until the very last step. And then on means and standard deviations, you should round to one more decimal place at least than the original data. I don't make a big deal out of rounding and significant figures. Actually, we will talk more about what I call important numbers as we get into math, and I will go over my expectations for working math problems. Alright, so they're just going through an example of rounding, so they would say round that to 22.1. I would prefer that you leave it as 22.09. So, when you look at mode, this is another way of looking at central tendency. This is the most frequently occurring value in your data set, and it's represented by the letter capital M. So if you look at this data set down here, you'll see that 21 occurs twice, everything else only occurs once. So the mode of this set would be 21. But we also have two other scenarios that happen when we look at mode, and later we'll use Excel to take care of this work for us. But if it's bimodal, it means it has two numbers with an equal set, equal frequencies that occur. And if it's multimodal, that means it has more than two numbers that stand out that have equal frequencies. So if you look at this data set, you'll see that 63 is the mode, because 63 is the only number that occurs twice. In this very similar data set, you'll see that 63 occurs twice and 59 occurs twice. So the frequency for both of those is identical, so we have a bimodal distribution. There are two modes. And if you look at this last data set, which is also very similar, 63, 59, and 48 all occur twice. So So that means we have a multimodal distribution with 63, 59, and 48 as modes. The last thing I want to talk about in this is the median. And I'd like you to think about a highway with the median in the middle. So really all this is looking at central tendency by looking at the values that are in the middle. So you arrange these in numeric order and then find the middle number. The symbol we use for median is tilde or x tilde. It's an x with a little squiggly over it. We'll probably just label it median in our work. So this is an example where they take the numbers, put them in order from 3 to 44. And if you look at this, 21 is the median. If you look at that, there are 5 numbers to the left and 5 numbers to the right. So it's in the dead center. So the median of this data set is 21. This one has an even number of values. So it occurs between 21 and 23. When this happens, you take those two numbers and find the average of those two. So you would add 21 and 23 together, divided by 2, you get 22 as the median. Oh, we do need to talk about this. Range, that's where you simply take the highest and the lowest value and subtract those. The symbol we use for range is a capital R. So if you look at this data set from 3 to 44, the range is the maximum minus the minimum. So we have 44 minus 3, so we have a range of 41. The next topic is standard deviation, and we'll talk about that later.